Hey guys, Misery here, back with another CZM video. And in today's video, we're doing the ultimate deck guide, whether it be for Seasonal Chaos or Sortie. But we're going to be talking about Seasonal Chaos first. So up on the screen right now, I made a little infographic for the newer players. If you're not really as familiar with Faint Memory and grinding decks, so the way grinding decks works is you have a point cap in the Chaos runs you do. And this point cap depends on the tier of the world you're in. So like tier 15 is 170, but in the top right, there's a little button you can press, which is Nightmare mode, and it adds one tier to your world. So if you have a tier 15 world, if you activate Nightmare, it'll go to tier 16, and then that's the 180 point cap per character, which is the max you can get. But some standard things that you're going to need to know for farming decks in Seasonal Chaos, there's a max limit of 5 removals. Transforming and converting a card through whether it be like an event or something will count as a removal. When you're copying cards, the first and second dupes are going to be 0 points, but the third dupe is going to be 40 points. Divine, Forbidden, and Neutral cards all going to add 20 points to your save data. But every unit in this entire game has 4 starting cards and 4 Epiphany cards. The starting cards are going to cost 20 points to remove, and the Epiphany cards are going to cost 0 to remove. Most units, you only want to remove the basics. For the starting cards, you usually don't want to remove their Epiphany starting card, but it's nice because you're probably going to remove some of their Epiphany cards, which cost 0 points. It actually used to cost points in season 1 if you played that long like me. Deck farming was like really bad back then, so like, I don't even know like how we like went through that. We must have really been on the grind. So Sortie's going to be best in slot for, you know, getting the designated cards you want on the deck, but Seasonal Chaos is still going to be like your way to farm the template of the deck, if that makes sense. Seasonal Chaos is best in slot for gear. So you farm a Seasonal Chaos deck, right? You get good gear, and maybe you get a few good specific Epiphanies for the specific deck you want. That's where Sortie comes in. Sortie's going to allow you to finish the deck very easier. It kind of dims it down in a way. So instead of just farming an entire deck in one run, when you do Sortie runs, you're making progress, getting more deck changing items for that specific deck you want, and getting one step closer to the final product. So even though there still is a decent amount of RNG involved, you can make consistent progress over multiple Sortie runs rather than having to farm an entire deck in one Chaos run, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's the infographic. I'm gonna leave it up for a few more seconds if you want to screenshot this and use it. Now getting into possibly the most important thing for deck farming. I was getting a ton of comments that a lot of people didn't know how to farm decks. And one of the main problems I saw is that they did not have these zero system upgrades. These are very important. I cannot stress this enough. So if we head over here to the upgrade tab, you have a bunch of upgrades. You get these gear cogs for zero system upgrades. And these zero system upgrades are going to help you so much when farming decks. So this first section, not really too important. This cognitive flash upgrade is pretty nice because increased Epiphany chance by 3%. The next one, the shop upgrade, is also pretty nice, decreasing the equipment cost by 20%, you know, gonna save you some credits. And then these last two, this one just increased credits gained, and this last one right here, mental breakdown recovery chance increased by 40%, which may save you in some cases. But the actual very important upgrades come from the second and third category. I'm not gonna go through all of these because there's just so many, and you know, I kind of want to make this a quick guide for you guys, so I'm just gonna talk about kind of like the main ones. So this first one here, I'm pretty sure this is the Kyrken's Blessing, where you get to select a random 1 of 3 options when you go into Seasonal Chaos. I usually always choose the left option that makes 3 battles 1 HP just for time consistency. It saves you a ton of time. And yeah, onto this next one, rare unidentified area appearances rate increased by 20%. You know, rare events are gonna be better, so this one's pretty solid to pick up too. For this next one, restock, you get 2 free refreshes in the shop. This is really good. Saves you some credits, and you know, allows you to have more chances for the designated gears you want. This next one, this training, this can be good if you're going for a neutral deck, or you want a deck with neutrals in it, such as Gear Bag, Negotiate. This training can help increase the odds of, you know, getting those cards. And then onto the last upgrade for the second section. This one's really good. One of the most important ones, it's Meditation. So this is going to allow you to re-epiphany a card if it got a bad epiphany. So say you got the 3-cost epiphany on Haide Marie Sword Rain that has exhaust, right? But you don't want that for that specific deck. You can just meditate. It will cost credits, so keep that in mind. It'll cost 80 at first. It scales the same way as removing cards from the shop, so 80, 120, 160, but it will give you a new set of 3 new Epiphanies. It is really nice because when before, if you got a bad epiphany in like season 1, you were just kind of like screwed over. So yeah, highly recommend to get Meditate. And then moving on to this third section for the upgrades, very important upgrade here called Ascendant Revelation. Increase divine epiphany chance by 15%. So this is going to make you get a lot more divine epiphanies, and I highly recommend to get this if you can. And onto the next upgrade, and arguably the most important upgrade in all of these upgrades, called Identification Signal Duplication. So this is going to allow you to select which which combatant you want to copy. The amount of RNG that goes down when you get this is so much. Like, this is so much value, and I highly recommend every new player to pick this up because this is the reason why you're struggling making decks if you're a newer player. The selected combatant copy. So up on the screen right now, I'm going to show pictures, and it's basically going to be like if you were to select Epiphany through an event for a specific unit during that run, but just for the dupe copies. So you get to choose which unit you want, and you'll get one of 3 cards to select to dupe of that unit. Now keep in mind, you can still whiff with this upgrade, but it's a lot less chance now. Most decks, you're probably going to be removing 2 Epiphany cards anyways. I highly recommend to remove Epiphany cards first before the basics when farming decks, just so they can't steal a slot in the copy event. So yeah, very highly recommend everyone to pick this up. And yeah, those are the upgrades and basically the ones you need to get. It makes such a big difference deck farming with all of these. And then onto the next segment of this video, and something important that I want to state: when you are farming decks, you have to evaluate 2 lowest value Epiphany cards for each unit. So like for example, Haida Marie, her worst value cards are Hero to All and Thread of Light. Now I'm not saying they're bad, but they're her worst value cards compared to Sword Rain or Effulgent Expansion. And this entire game revolves around cycling your entire 3 decks every turn, and having thin decks being able to cycle to get the most value every turn. You don't want to have bloated decks that have upwards of like maybe 9 cards unless you have Epiphanies that can go neutral and cycle themselves. But most people usually farm around 6 card decks, which is like pretty thin and easy to cycle in most composition. And then next we have the difficulties and tiers for the seasonal chaos. So like I was saying earlier about the tiers, that depends on how many points you get per run. The higher the tier, the more points you can get, with a max base of tier 15 on your worlds going up to 16 with Nightmare. So up on the screen, I'm going to have each tier and how many points you get for that tier. I highly recommend farming on difficulty 8 for seasonal chaos, just because this is the lowest difficulty you can go for a tier 15. You can't get a tier 15 on difficulty 7. As for the modifiers on the worlds, some of them can be really challenging, especially if you're a new player. Like if you're using 9 and you get the neglect modifier on a world and it discards your hue, it basically makes 9 unplayable on that world. It's like really bad, and you have to cycle your entire deck again just to get hue, which can get discarded again. So highly recommend to not choose neglect when using 9 on your world. Some other modifiers that you may find difficulty with, especially if you're a new player, are decrease max HP. Usually for endgame players, you're not going to be struggling with this because we have built and fleshed out units, so this isn't a problem when you're later on, but early game it can be annoying. The same thing goes for Fortitude, aka Harden. Fortitude is a really annoying buff on enemies because it decreases the damage you do to them, or they take. So if they get a lot of Fortitude stacks, you're not really going to be doing damage and they're going to become way harder to kill. The decreased credits modifier is fine just because we get so much select and remove copy events, and most of the events give a bunch of credits, so that's not really too bad. I'm pretty sure that's just on battles too. It doesn't increase the credits you get from events. And then the add elite zones modifier, this can take up question mark zones, just keep that in mind. So usually you want to go for as many question mark zones, especially in floor 2, because there's a floor 2 copy event that you don't want to miss. So adding elite zones to the modifier can take up question mark zones. And if you're a newer player, you can click the top left of your unit's faces and icons to see how much save data you have that run. Or like if you're in the middle of a run, you can click the top left, it'll tell you how many points you have per character. As for the Kyrken's Blessing, like I talked about earlier, I vaguely talked about it. I usually just go the left option always for the 3 normal battles for 1 HP. You can go something like increase credits for the middle one, or the right one will have select and remove options also, whether it be 1 or 2. That's totally fine to take also, but I just like to be time efficient because the 3 battles at 1 HP saves me a lot of time. Something important is that every unit has a base of 1 to 2 starting Epiphanies per chaos run, as long as you have their first potential unlocked, such as like Repose for Veronica. Repose is not her starting card, so you're gonna have to get lucky and win the 50-50 in the beginning of the chaos run and get Repose instead of Pendant of Resolution. But something also that's worth mentioning, not having this potential unlocked will make farming 0 card decks very much easier, and 0 card decks are very strong when starting off in the game. So basically what a 0 card deck is and what it does is just 0 cards. I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory, but there are 2 meanings. It can be a straight 0 card deck, or it could be like a deck with 2 upgrades, and since upgrades go away and are passive after you use them, it's therefore a 0 card deck. So either work and are fine for cycling your entire 3 decks. It just makes cycling a lot easier. A lot of people are having trouble and asking a bunch of questions on where you get all the copies for these decks. So boss 1 will give you 1 copy. There is a floor 2 event that allows you to copy, and then you get the 3rd copy from boss 2. So like I was talking about the elite modifier on your worlds earlier, in the modifier and tier section, that modifier can take up question mark zones, and you potentially could whiff this copy event in floor 2. You usually need around 6 question mark zones to guarantee the copy event. That is something to keep in mind when scouting ahead in floor 2. Most floor 2 copy events have a rare version of them which gives mythic equipment, but I usually highly advise to never take the equipment, just always take the copy, because the extra card copy is going to do a lot more for you than the mythic equipment. Unless you are running like a super thin deck that doesn't require more copies, such as like a 3 card Orlea deck, then maybe depending on what equipment it is, it could be worth it. But yeah, that's just something to keep in mind. And I think that's kind of like everything you need to know for seasonal chaos. You won't be farming seasonal chaos as much now that Sortie is out, but but you still need to farm seasonal chaos for good gear on the deck and just like the base layout and template of the deck. Still, ideally you want to try to get the best deck you can in seasonal chaos so you can save yourself some deck changing items and don't have to do sortie as much. But yeah, so deck farming has become a lot easier with the introduction of sortie, which is the new roguelike game mode. You basically complete sortie runs for this currency up here called black mass. As of right now, I have 214,000 of this. This is actually quite a lot. I've been, grinding sortie, but basically in sortie you can buy these deck changing item materials, core potentials, abyssal cores, colorless cores, a bunch of cores that you can use to change cards on your deck. Now, I have seen a lot of people struggling with sortie recently, and something I need to say is that getting these upgrades are very important, especially these base stat upgrades, because you need as many base stats as you possibly can get in sortie to make it as easy as possible. But yeah, after you get the important upgrades, and here, there's some important upgrades, and this one, like this flash here, or these search agains, these are very important to making your runs more consistent, so you're not starting the first floor with a bad second pick for your characters, because you ideally want a healer first floor. Shielders are fine too, but healers are really where it's at, because you're still going to be taking damage when you're shielding, but if you have a healer, you can just heal all back up. So highly recommend to farm most of these upgrades in sortie to make your life a lot easier. But showing up on the screen right now is actually going to be the deck that we're going to be building in this video. So it's going to be a Veronica deck. We have the firing preparation on the shelling ballista Epiphany, we have quad repos, then we have pendant of resolution on when using a skill card 1 reload. So if you farmed a deck before, maybe like the Cassius Morale deck, that's actually going to be a lot cheaper than this one. This one is actually going to be pretty expensive just because of the amount of RNG we're going to need, but I have not crafted a Veronica deck this season and I need one. So I figured I'd just make this into a video for you guys. But the main point of this deck is the 0 repos on the divine that gives draw 1 cards of this unit. Now you can go the divine that, treats this card as a common card and it draws 1 common card, but the problem with that is that it's not as future proof. If another unit in the future needs a common card deck and you need to use Veronica in the team, she's actually going to be drawing those other common cards in our repos. The main point of Veronica is we want to cycle repos into repos, because the first text of repos draw 2 other combatants cards that cannot draw repos, but the divine part draw 1 cards of this unit, yes, that can repos into repos. Now this divine will also be drawing pendant of resolution, but since pendant is an upgrade, it's just 1 time, I think that's fine. I think this deck is more future proof and more worth the value than the common card one. 65k terabytes. Just title this crafting because we're going to be crafting on this, but this is the deck. Now, like I said earlier, this deck is actually going to be pretty expensive to make because shown up on the screen right now, you have to hit a 1 in 6 chance for the correct god for the divine. And then on top of that, you need to hit the 1 in 4 chance for the specific divine that you want. So it's pretty RNG dependent, and we're probably going to need to buy a lot of these abyssal cores. So I'm just going to go ahead and buy maybe like 20 of these, I suppose. And we'll just see how it rolls. So let's head over here to my combatants and let's head over to my Veronica, over to save data, and we have the deck right here called craft. So you just click this top right button, edit data, and it brings up all of these items that you have, all of these cores. We're going to use Epiphany remanifestation on the fire prep. Since we didn't get an Epiphany on that, we want shelling, so we just use shelling here. That is one of the Epiphanies, and then we use another one on the pendant of resolution because this isn't the right one. We actually want this first one when using a skill card 1 reload, because that also applies to Veronica. Using her reposes will give her reload. Those are all of the base Epiphanies done. Now we just need to get the divines on the repos, which is what we have these for. So you just start applying these. Hopefully we can get this pretty early. That one's pretty bad, so we do not want that. We may be here for a while, but I'll try to speed things up. Draw 1, unfortunately not the right god, and then we keep going. We just keep going until we get draw 1 cards of this unit. We just got draw again. So yeah, I may have to speed this up when I'm editing this video. Decrease cost of ego skill, no, we do not want that. Ooh, okay, that was actually kind of fast. That's one of them done. Okay, we only had to use 5. Nice. We go here again. Wait, I just got that back to back. Wait, that was actually insanely lucky. There's no way I just hit that back to back. We actually might get this a lot faster than we think. Draw 1, we don't want draw 1. That was the right god though, but it was just the wrong one. Gain 1 AP, no, we don't want that. Discard 2 exhaust cards, nope. Very surprised. Okay, we just got 3rd one there. Dude, our luck is actually insane. We actually might get this like really, really fast. Gain 1 AP, we do not want that. Another gain 1 AP. Getting down to the last one here, the 20th one. Okay, just a regular draw one. So we're gonna have to go buy more of these cores in the sortie shop, which, you know, shouldn't be a problem because we have like 200,000 black mass. I guess we'll buy 5 more. Maybe we get lucky. I don't want to overbuy them if I don't need to. And then edit data. Yeah, apply random divine epiphany. This is the other one that if you do not want to go draw 1 cards of this unit, you can go this one. But like I said earlier, this one isn't as future proof because if another unit needs a common card deck, it's going to draw into those cards and not repos. And there's the last one. Draw 1 cards of this unit. So basically, that's the deck done. Used a flash on Pendant and a fire prep, and then just used a bunch of those random divines on the reposes. Min-maxed the gear as best as I could. If we actually head over here to the sortie game mode, we can go check how much black mass I have left and how much I actually used. So I started with 214k down to 174k. So that deck took me around 40k black mass. I did have core potential saved. So if I did not have those saved, that would have been an extra 16k. So 56k for this deck. You know, definitely a lot more expensive than the Cassius deck, but the RNG for this deck is just so much more than the Cassius deck. So, and yeah, here's the finished product of this Veronica deck I just crafted from scratch. I showed you guys step by step from start to finish, so I hope this video was helpful. You know, maybe you can craft some god tier decks easier now if you know you were confused by the new game mode sortie and how to actually farm decks with it. But yeah, that's going to be the end of this video. I hope this video was informative. If it was, I'd very much appreciate if you could show love to the channel. It all means a ton to me. If you have any other ideas or suggestions for videos that you want me to do, leave it down in the comments below. I'll take it into consideration. But yeah, that's going to be the end of this video. I hope you guys take care, peace, and be safe until the next one.